Upset alert meter. We got games all over the place happening this week. You got two really big ones, right? You got Tennessee and Alabama going on the road, and Tennessee versus Georgia and Alabama versus LSU. And yet there is a strong undercurrent of games out there that, of course, aren't on the playoff radar, the national radar, therefore they don't matter. Well, they matter very much around here because some of them could bring upsets that shake up that precious playoff picture everyone wants to talk about on Tuesday. But I'm going to get to some games that are just big for other reasons. The upset alert meter, scale of 1 to 10. How much should the favorite be on alert here? Liberty at Arkansas. What would you guess the line was on this game? Arkansas is favored by 2 touchdowns at home. Let's not kid ourselves. This is an open job audition, again, for Hugh Freeze. There are some jobs coming open. You're going to hear his name in and around the Auburn opening. There's some chatter around West Virginia if it were to come open, which it's not yet. But Hugh Freeze and Liberty, the head coach there for now, going on the road. They're a 2-touchdown dog. The Liberty defense, how much can you attack them? Well, they're 3rd in FBS in sacks per game. They are 7th in FBS in takeaways. Translation, I think Kendall Browse may run the ball 50 times this weekend. Now, they have a decent run defense statistically at Liberty. I think Sam Pittman and his team will simply look across the field and say, they can't hold up against us for 4 quarters. And I think he's right. And the other thing that we know to be the way to attack Arkansas is through the air. And Liberty just doesn't possess that offense this year. You may not have watched them. They don't have that quick strike through the air kind of vertical pass game that in some years they've had under Hugh Freeze. So I'm going to put this at a 5. Okay, it's a formidable opponent. I think formidable enough where Arkansas will take them seriously. So I'm going to say it's a 5 on the upset alert meter. Moving on. Game we already talked about. Our full Tennessee-Georgia preview is on the channel. It's about to pass 100,000 views, by the way. We will be in Sanford Stadium. We will be on the sideline for this game. And although I do this every week, I want you to rest assured of many things. We don't ever get used to this around here. And I will never take that stuff for granted. I don't care if you put me on the top row of the stadium because I know a lot of you are spending a lot of money, in some cases that you don't have, just to get in this thing. So the fact that we get to do what we do is really incredible. It's also why you don't ever catch us calling what we do work, because that's not work. We get to do for a job what most people would do for fun. Let's look at the number 30 in this game. The number 30, what does that mean? Jesse walks in and he said, paper pop, paper pop. There you go, Jesse. There's your authentic paper pop. He said, let me tell you about the number 30. Tennessee, 30-plus points their last 11 games. I said, that's impressive, Jesse. I know they can score, though. He said, hold on. He put his index finger to my lips. Shh, not done yet. And I said, Jesse, wash your hands. And he said, listen to me. Georgia, 22 of their last 23 games have held the opposition under 30 points. Of course, the one being the game that I would look at if I were Tennessee as a blueprint to beat Georgia, and that was the SEC championship game last year. So the number 30, something's got to give there, right? Georgia favored by 8, even as we sit here on this Thursday night. People swore to me Monday and Tuesday, guys. People swore to me, ooh, that line's not going to stay above 7 for very long. Well, maybe you're right, but it's still there now. So everyone who's ultra confident in Tennessee money line, go ahead and grab those points while you're at it. Is a fast start imperative for Tennessee? Is it imperative? I was talking to Jake Rowe, who doesn't work here anymore. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention his name, but I was talking to Jake Rowe today, and we were kind of just tossing some thoughts back and forth about how we think the game's going to go. And I talked about the fast start that Tennessee had against Alabama, of course. And then sometimes what you can forget is there was a 25-6 Alabama run baked into that game. But it had to be there because Tennessee got the big lead. So you look at Georgia. Now, I know there's an anonymous coach feature they do on ESPN.com where some anonymous coach said he wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee hangs 50 on Georgia. Georgia's just not fast enough. Those receivers are going to run by that secondary all day. Hats off to him if they do. Hats off to him. I think there is a very decent chance that Tennessee wins this game and pulls the upset. I've got Georgia winning the game close, but if they don't achieve the fast start here, I really wonder if it's in the cards for Tennessee to hit their stride in the second or third quarter. Because I think far more likely for them to pull the upset is a scenario similar to the Alabama game where they jump out ahead and then you trade punches and then you're there in the end and hopefully you can make some big plays. But we talked a lot about a Tennessee fast start the other night. What if it's Georgia 13-0, 14-0 early on? You're certainly not out of the game, but if they can work you through that script and they got home field at their back, it's an infinitely tougher challenge. Having said that, I'm putting a 9 on this game. The upset alert meter is pegged. This is the toughest game for Georgia all year. It's the most unique challenge all year. Thought it was pretty interesting, not surprising, but interesting listening to Kirby earlier this week talk about how they were prioritizing conditioning all the way back in the summer because of this game. And he admitted a lot of the games we have not needed it like we will in this game. But if you go back and you watch a number of teams that Tennessee's played, but the Bama game's the most high profile, it's so crazy what sucking wind a little bit in the third or fourth quarter does. It doesn't take much, guys. It takes one guy not fitting the gap the right way. It takes you being one step late. It takes your eyes getting lazy for a split second, and Jalen Hyatt goes 60 yards to the end zone. Because even though it seems like those are small margins, they lead to such big differences in the outcome of a game. And yet you've got Schumann up there, and you've got Kirby Smart, obviously, as the head coach, and you've got Will Muschamp just kind of hanging out in Athens. So there are a lot of really good defensive minds up there. I'm interested to see what they throw at Tennessee. They know what the challenge is. So I'm putting a 9 on that one. It's the closest, it's the most threatened Georgia should be all year, at least as we sit here pregame. Florida State plays Miami Saturday. I cannot wait, friends, for us to get down the road a little ways and that be one of the feature games of this weekend. Its rightful place, by the way, judging by history, as being one of the feature games of the weekend. As we sit here now, it's a 5-3 team against a 4-4 team. I was checking out InsideTheU.com earlier today, and David Lake had an interesting update on the quarterback situation from Miami. Earlier in the week, it didn't look like Tyler Van Dyke was going to be able to go. And Mario Cristobal's been giving updates about him the last couple of weeks. He's been injured. He's been out. Well, now they're optimistic. As we've gotten a little bit later in the week, closer to the game, David Lake said, and a lot of people around that program are echoing the sentiment that it looks like they're going to try and give it a go with Tyler Van Dyke, which obviously leads to the new set of questions of what kind of caliber quarterback player we're going to get from Miami. I can tell you the model loves Florida State here. And I'm not totally sure we won't end up betting them, but I would prefer for you to tune into Friday Night Lines to see if we're going to bet them, because we're not going to do it tonight. There's a 7.5 sitting out there right now as the consensus line. So it makes no sense for us to lay that right now, especially if I'm on the fence about the game. We do have several best bets coming later, but that's not one of them tonight. Miami's won 4 of the last 5 here. FSU, I think, they are a significantly better team, or they have been so far this year. Now, if you get some sudden spark with Tyler Van Dyke coming back, anything's in play. I mean, this is a game where clearly there's no clearly superior squad, so anything's in play. I'm going to say this is a 6. Florida State's favored by 7.5. It's on the road at Miami. I'm going to say it's a 6 on the upset alert scale. Clearly, it's in the cards there. And think about what that would mean for Miami. You've got a 4-4 team right now. They've felt dead in the water. If they were to beat Florida State, all of a sudden that's like taking the shock panels to the chest of that team. Not the program, but the team. And all of a sudden then they're 5-4, and they've got Georgia Tech next week. They could get bowl eligible before they go to Clemson and then play Pitt to end the year. So it would be a huge upset for a number of reasons for Miami. The last one I wanted to touch on is a game that we've also already broken down, and it's Bama LSU. Bama right now is favored by 13.5, and all I've been told all week is how it's a lot of points. Now, I told you the other night, I think it's a really bad matchup for LSU. I feel that way still. And I got a hat tip our friends over on Go 24/7. The LSU fan base has been one of the best fan bases in the world to us. And I mean long before I got to CBS and 24/7. Back when we were doing this thing independent, back in 2018 and 2019, in Columbus, Georgia. There was no reason for the LSU fan base to adopt us, and yet they did. And so I've always had a very, very special place, like a little purple splotch in my heart for LSU. Having said that, when you pick against LSU normally, those folks rip you to pieces. And yet I go over to the Go 24/7 board earlier today, and there is a 2 to 3 page deep thread showing our prediction video from the other night where I picked Alabama to win and cover against LSU. There wasn't one negative comment. Not one. Almost to the point where I worry, are they pulling too many punches over there? Which is very unlike our friends over on the Go 24/7 board. So, guys, it's okay to take shots. In fact, I would, just for my own amusement and sanity, I wish you'd take a couple of shots at me. Just do it so I can feel better about myself. I'm going to put a 4.25 on the upset alert meter here. Why? Even though I don't like the matchup, who cares? I didn't like the matchup against Texas, and Texas almost beat Bama. So we got Bama going on the road, which is its own set of obstacles these days, as it turns out, and I will continue to say that until we see otherwise, as we show highlights from a video from a game where they kind of pulled away against Arkansas. But we remember very recently several examples where they've been shaken on the road. You know what the most forgotten game in the world has been with all these big teams is the LSU game last year with Alabama. Not doing the comparative thing. One year doesn't matter relative to the next one. But last year, I want you to keep in mind, Alabama, as it turns out, is en route to a season that will see them win the SEC championship, go to the playoff and beat Cincinnati, and then lead Georgia again in the fourth quarter of the national title game. They almost got beat by LSU. LSU had the ball in plus territory last year in Tuscaloosa with a chance to win. And this is already after they've announced Orgeron's going to be fired. I mean, they've got 40 to 45, 50 scholarship players left. I mean, they were a team that had no business whatsoever competing. The line was in the 4 touchdown range, and yet there's LSU, just inexplicably, with an opportunity to win the game. The reason I'm mentioning that is not because I'm necessarily taking anything from that game last year to this game this year. I'm just saying, if that corpse of a team that limped to the finish line last year could push Bama to the wire in Tuscaloosa, absolutely this can happen. I don't need to have a path. I know they hadn't run the ball worth anything. I know it's not a good matchup. I know that pass rush should harass Jaden Daniels all night. I know all of these things. But yet, I've also said I think I know some things about Bama in these road spots in the past couple of years, and we've ended up being wrong because they just haven't been a disciplined and dominant unit on the road. One of those has to come before the other. So I'm going to put you know what, Jesse, I'm going to go higher. I'm going to go 5. It's a 5 on the upset alert meter. It's going to be well worth watching. And also, you know me, I keep up with the weather so you don't have to. A 100% chance of thunderstorms in Baton Rouge this Saturday. Here could be the saving grace. First off, it's a fact it never rains in Tiger Stadium. That's undeniable. In the second and more real sense, it looks like some of that action could get out of there before game time. But you better cross your fingers, because I'm not just talking about heavy rain. I'm talking about the kind of convective activity that could maybe delay your game. So let's push all that out, just all of us together, so that maybe you have some scattered showers and storms that you can find a bubble to work a game in between later that night. Huge weekend. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.